No, I don't have.
Yesterday, I was jogging behind me in the old city when I got a urgent call from my chief of staff telling me to get back to the hotel as quickly as I could, that Israel was under attack. There were thousands of rockets being launched. When I got back to the hotel, I joined others in the bomb shelter or the stairwells of the hotel. Frightened faces that were children and elderly families, many Americans. There was a sense of fear and worry, and a knowledge to many of us that there were horrific things going on around the country at that time. I am in Israel.
There you have it. Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey. He is in Israel, jogging on Saturday, early Saturday morning when Hamas began its assault on that country. More than 700 at least reported dead, 2,000 or more injured, and they are attacking civilians over there. We'll tell you what the National Newspaper Publishers Association's leadership had to say about what's going on there this morning. Also, a horrifying find in Orlando, Florida. Yona Lubrin, a young Black woman who supposedly has a history of mental illness, but family says that this was not something self-inflicted. Found hanged from a tree, nude. We'll talk about that this morning as well. And the Trump trial enters the second week. The fraud trial, business fraud, civil trial of the twice impeached, 4 times indicted, a former president continues in New York with him continuing to sneer at and scowl at Attorney General Letitia James. We'll bring you the latest there. And new prison numbers show America remains in love with mass incarceration. We'll tell you about that as well. And Sly Stone is saying, hey, I'm just like everyday people. Thank you for letting me be myself again. He's got a new book coming out thanks to Questlove. We're going to talk about that. And Chris Rock has decided he's going to sit in the director's chair on a new film about Martin Luther King Jr. All of that this morning on Let It Be Known. We start with a statement. The National Newspaper Publishers Association, representing the Black press of America, issued a resolute statement of support for Israel amidst the recent escalation of conflict there in the Middle East. In a joint statement released on Saturday, NNPA chair Bobby Henry, who's also the publisher of the West Side Gazette newspaper in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and NNPA president and CEO Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr., unequivocally condemned the devastating acts of violence perpetrated against the Jewish people and the nation of Israel by Hamas. The militant group's firing of a deadly barrage of rockets and the infiltration of Israeli territory marked a significant escalation in the ongoing conflict between the two sides. In the statement, Bobby Henry and Dr. Chavis said the National Newspaper Publishers Association, representing the Black press of America, forthrightly condemns the brutal, fatal terrorist attacks today on the Jewish people and the nation of Israel by Hamas. Terrorism, they said, against innocent civilians in Israel and in any other place in the world can never be justified, tolerated, or sanctioned. We stand firmly in solidarity with Israel. The statement underscores the unity and solidarity between the African American and Jewish communities in the face of adversity, according to Bobby Henry and Dr. Chavis. While their shared history is complex and nuanced, the NNPA's declaration underscores their shared common ground by condemning violence and terrorism against innocent civilians, regardless of where it occurs. The NNPA, of course, was founded in 1940, and it is the Trade Association of the Black Press of America, which was founded in 1827 in New York City. Its mission is to advocate for the African American press and promote the importance of Black-owned media in shaping public opinion and preserving the African American cultural experience. The support for Israel comes at a critical juncture, and it emphasizes the importance of solidarity with nations and communities facing acts of violence and terrorism, transcending historical differences to unite in a common cause. And meanwhile, we saw the video of Cory Booker, who was jogging Saturday morning when the attacks began. Cory Booker is currently, the last we heard, is trying to return home, and he'd like for Americans there to be able to return home as well. But this situation is really amazing. They began their assault by going after civilians. We heard about the concert. They attacked the concert. This, when you're at war, generally and the Geneva Convention, of course, which very few abide by. It's international law. You don't attack civilians, but this is what's been going on there. The young model stripped nude and killed over there and paraded throughout the streets there, and other horrible scenes coming out of the Gaza Strip there. It's just been terrifying to see, heartbreaking to I don't care what side of the aisle you on. It's just horrible to see the destruction, the death of innocent civilians. Power 96 says, I promise you this, the Israelis will continue to hit hard until Hamas is destroyed. Hamas gave Benjamin Netanyahu what he wanted, which was war. And then Mike V says Palestinians, and someone else was writing about this too. But here's the thing, that where we have a little bit of a dichotomy here, I guess. Palestinians are no different than African Americans, is what Mike V says. They are both colonized peoples by Anglo-Saxon people. To show solidarity with them is a contradiction to Black history. Malcolm X stood with Palestine. And David Youngblood says, has NNPA made a similar public statement regarding the collective punishment Palestinians live with every day? And look, the hierarchy of the NNPA, Dr. Dr. Benjamin Chavis, the president and CEO, and the NNPA chair, Bobby Henry, they've come out to condemn this attack, and with the understanding that there's the other side of this. So, David, Mike, we hear you. We certainly hear you. But I will say this, and I think you both will agree: under no circumstances should civilians be subjected to what these citizens have been subjected to there in Israel. Women, children, older women. There's a video of this older woman, probably someone's grandmother, very calm. She seems to be handcuffed, sitting in a van or a vehicle anyway, being taken captive, and very resolute. But from old to young, women, children, they're being killed over there. And so certainly, I think we all could agree that our hearts have to go out to those victims. These are not soldiers. And war should be soldiers to soldiers and not soldiers to civilians. I get totally what David Youngblood and Mike V has brought out, and you won't get a whole lot of pushback in the African American community on those two takes right there. Power 96 says, thank goodness he's retired. The U.S. is definitely going to have special forces on the ground. They've already started sending machinery, weaponry to the Middle East. And we know it's going to escalate, and it has escalated. So a lot to be concerned about. You have the Ukrainian situation, and still Senator Tommy Tuberville said again yesterday that he is not coming off his blockade as this breaks out in the Middle East. David Youngblood says Palestinian civilians have no right to the privacy of their own homes. An Israeli soldier can go into it anytime he wants. And thus the escalating of the conflict. Well, we will certainly have no choice but to keep our eye on it, on this situation as it unfolds. Turn our attention back to the United States and down in Florida. A disturbing find. The community there in Orlando and family members are calling on police to further investigate the circumstances surrounding a 30-year-old Black woman who was found dead hanging from a tree. Yona Lubrin, also known as Yo-Yo, was found hanging from a tree in a residential backyard while police were responding to an, quote, unattended
She was loving. She was cared for. She was my mother's caretaker.
The family of Yona Lubrin says she was a happy-go-lucky woman with a great sense of humor. They say she would have turned 31 years old this month, but she'll never see another birthday. Her life ended in a way her family describes as a mystery that needs to be solved.
On September 28th, 2023, Thursday, at approximately 7 a.m. in the morning, the partially nude body of 30-year-old Yona Lubrin was found hanging from a tree in the back of a home in Orlando, Florida.
The Orange County.
And so her family says that the area where she was found, she it's far away from her home. She never goes there. They allege that someone took her there, and someone is responsible for this. Police say this is a mental health issue, and that she committed suicide. Family says no way. And even America's Black Attorney General Ben Crump is weighing in. He wants a thorough investigation. He's demanding a thorough investigation into this. What a tragic situation there. And again, something else we need to keep our eye on as the days and time moves forward. This is not something that should go without follow-up reporting, which we will do, and bring to light what really happened. If it was a suicide, then so be it, right? Be it as it may. But The family wants to know for certain what happened here. They do not, in any way, shape, or form, do not believe that it was a suicide. Only 31 years old. It is sad. And Power 96 is saying, we know the police will never fully investigate her death. Oh, that's why it's important to keep the pressure on. And having Ben Crump in your corner does not hurt nowadays at all. They can do a private investigation as well, but what the family wants is a thorough investigation. Well, they wrapped up the first week in a major civil fraud trial in New York involving the twice impeached and 4 times indicted ex-president Donald Trump, who repeatedly scowled and stared at Attorney General Letitia James throughout the week. But there's a series of developments that unfolded that could disqualify Trump from ever doing business in New York again. Perhaps the biggest bombshell as the trial continues was the admission under oath by Jeffrey McConney, who was the former senior vice president of the Trump Organization. He revealed that the Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg has sought his assistance in, quote, committing tax fraud. He further disclosed that he continued these illicit activities after Weisselberg's under Weisselberg's direction, fearing that he would be fired if he refused to do so. When prosecutors asked McConney whether he had been directed more than once to help Weisselberg commit tax fraud, McConnell said absolutely. McConney added that Weisselberg ordered him to process a payroll check for Weisselberg's wife so she could get Social Security benefits, even though she was not a Trump Organization employee. Additionally, he admitted being aware that he was breaking the law, but he continued his fraudulent acts because Weisselberg was his boss and knew he would likely lose his job if he stopped obeying the boss's commands. McConney told the court that he fraudulently inflated the value of multiple Trump Organization real estate assets, including a property in Westchester County, New York, that Eric Trump was developing. The Attorney General, Letitia James, she seeks as much as $250 million in fines against Trump, the 2024 GOP presidential frontrunner, who was also, as you might remember, found responsible by a civil jury this year for sexually assaulting a journalist. This is the man who said when he was running for president the first time that he could grab women by their private parts and get away with it. Yeah, Power 96 says Attorney General James is that woman. She is hitting Donald Trump in his pockets. Trump will not be able to sell a hot dog in New York after this trial. But Judge Arthur Engoron dismissed an attempt by Trump's legal team to stop the proceedings altogether. He responded to emergency arguments presented at the close of the trial's first week, sending it to an appellate division, which the judge clarified there that the application was only granted to stay the enforcement of the Supreme Court's order pertaining to the cancellation of business certificates. He's trying, in other words, folks, Trump is arguing that regardless of the outcome of this trial, he should still be able to do business in New York. But the court rejected the interim application in all other aspects. Trump's attorneys contended that the judge in this trial, his rulings could result in what they termed as, quote, corporate death sentences for various Trump companies, necessitating their dissolution. Attorney General Tish James simply said, all they're doing is grandstanding. She says, yet another court has denied his efforts to evade justice for his years of fraud. She says Trump is twisting this ruling and falsely claiming victory for a resolution that we proposed. The truth is simple. A judge ruled that he committed repeated and persistent fraud, and we will continue to demonstrate that in court. Tish James is not playing around, is she? Austin Cooper says that Black women with law degrees is Trump's first thought in the morning and his last thought at night. Austin. And Mike V says some folks calling Black folks welfare queens and President Obama the food stamp president have no problem ripping off the system for the same benefits. Shaking my head. That's the way it goes, Mike. We know. I knew you guys were going to come for everybody this morning, and y'all haven't disappointed at all. Preliminary data released by the Bureau of Justice Statistics revealed a notable increase in the number of individuals held in local jails. As of mid-year 2022, the incarceration population, these are the latest figures, mid-year 2022, the incarceration population stood at 663,100, marking a 4% surge compared to the previous year's 636,100. The surge, of course, is part of a more significant trend that has seen jail admissions rise by 6.6% from July 2021 to June 2022, totaling 7.3 million entries. It again shows America's love affair with mass incarceration. According to the new data of the incarcerated population in mid-2022, 14% were female, representing an increase over the previous year. And that's another aspect of this. They are now jailing more women, and yes, more Black women, more Latino women. The female population experienced a growth of 9%, which surpassed the previous growth of 3%. Among those in custody, approximately 30% were convicted or awaiting sentence, while the remaining 70% were not convicted, they were waiting pending court action or held for other reasons. The distribution mirrors the proportions observed previously. The numbers saw a 2% increase for state and federal prisons from year-end 2021 to year-end 2022, with the population rising from 1.2 million to just under 1.3 million. Notably, 35 states and the federal prison system saw an uptick in the number of individuals sentenced to more than 1 year. Most prisoners, approximately 96% in 2021 and 2022, had sentences of more than a year. And of course, as we get to the demographics of it all, it has remained consistent over the years. 32% of the incarcerated are Black. 32%, when 13% of the population overall is Black. And there's a lot of places to go from there, right? In response to the report, the Jobs Opportunity Task Force in Maryland, or JOTF, which is a nonprofit that advocates for improved skills, jobs, and incomes, they drew attention to the wide-reaching effects of incarceration. They revealed that approximately 113 million adults in the U.S., or roughly 45%, have a family member with a history of imprisonment, and 79 million individuals possess a criminal record. The JOTF pointed out that the post-pandemic era has witnessed a resurgence in mass incarceration. They highlighted concerns specific to Maryland as well. They warned that, and this is the thing that caught my attention, folks, in Maryland alone, the JOTF said that the state incarcerates more individuals per capita than Canada, France, the UK, and China. That's just in Maryland. They said that if this should continue in Maryland, the state could face economic repercussions, including high unemployment rates among returning citizens, potentially leading to increased reliance on government assistance, diminished tax revenues, and elevated returns to jail. But that first part, right? High unemployment rates. This is what it's all about. Lock them up, they say. Lock them up. Well, again, America continues to imprison more people than any other nation by far. Well, folks, it's Monday, and there's no one in music or anywhere else really quite like Sly Stone. He invented his own funky mixed up hybrid of rock and roll and R&B. And with his band, Sly and the Family Stone, he became one of the most influential musicians of the late 1960s. Funk legend and longtime friend George Clinton said that it was like seeing the black version of the Beatles. He had the sensibility of the street, the church, and then like the qualities of a Motown, like Smokey Robinson. He was all of that in one person. The songs Everyday People, Dance to the Music, Hot Fun in the Summertime are American classics, but the guy behind them is still something of a mystery. Watching the band in 2021 documentary Summer of Soul, it still feels like something new. But Questlove, who won an Oscar for that film, is now publishing Stone's memoir, and the title is taken from the classic 1969 song, Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again. When he puts together, Questlove says, when he puts together this band, Sly and the Family Stone, it seems like he really has a vision. Jerry Martini, the saxophone player, said he knew exactly what he was doing. Boys, girls, black, white. Sly knew which buttons to push to not only make his musicians better, but also how we would receive it, knowing that we've never seen a band before in which, the women just aren't background singing foils that play the tambourine. Like Cynthia Robinson could destroy anybody playing trumpet. So to have a band that has women playing instruments as serious as men do, to have a white guy as the drummer, if you're the drummer in a black band, you better be good. You know what I mean? Sly grew up as Sylvester Stewart in San Francisco, California, and worked as a DJ before he founded the band in 1966. 3 years later, the Family Stone album Stand put them on the map, and the single Everyday People went to #1. And Questlove says, if you listen to the structure of Everyday People, it's really nothing but a repeat. But he says, who has the wit and the clever mind to figure out how to insert this potent message inside of a song so innocent sounding? Of course, by 1971, that innocence began to fade. The band released a darker, weirder follow-up, a futuristic masterpiece called There's a Riot Going On. But Sly Stone was struggling. In the book, he writes that his life revolved around drugs, particularly cocaine. He often missed his gigs, although he did manage to show up to his own wedding, folks, to Kathy Silver at Madison Square Garden in 1974. Yeah, Sly is the man. He got married at the Garden. By the 80s, the band had basically disintegrated, and Sly himself was only occasionally seen on off stage, as in a 1983 court appearance on a cocaine possession charge. He made a few comeback attempts in the 80s, but mainly he laid low. He surfaced again in 2006 at a Grammys tribute, his first time with the original group since the 70s, but he left before it was over. By 2011, he was living in a van in Los Angeles. To many fans, it seemed like rock bottom. But now, 80 years old, Sly Stone is still living a reclusive life, but he has a house in an anonymous section of Los Angeles. But now, at least 4 years sober, his book is hitting the shelves thanks to Questlove, and his family, the Stone children, are speaking out about their dad, his problems, and that he's doing well. The good news is that at 80, he's doing well. He chose to lay low for a number of reasons. One was his addiction, but the other, the spotlight just wasn't for him anymore, according to his family. I'm looking forward to reading this about Sly Stone. I think this is a book, and hopefully a feature film will follow, that's long overdue. The genius, Sly Stone, and a new book from another genius who Questlove. Questlove is actually writing the book for Sly. So we will see the end results of that. Looking forward to that very much. And speaking of genius and another genius, Chris Rock, love him or hate him, Chris Rock fits the bill a bit, and at least in his genre, right? Well, he's gearing up to examine the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The actor and comedian is in final negotiations to direct and produce a film of the late civil rights icon. The Hollywood Reporter was first to confirm this. Universal is behind the project and has opened the rights to Jonathan Eag's biography, King, A Life, which debuted to acclaim in May and earned a National Book Award nomination. The book, which drew upon newly unearthed FBI information on King, is described by its publisher as an intimate portrayal of King as a courageous but emotionally troubled individual who demanded peaceful protests while grappling with his own frailties and a government that hunted him. Steven Spielberg is going to executive produce the picture, but Chris Rock is going to be the one at the helm in the director's seat. And Chris Rock currently stars in Rustin, which stars Coleman Domingo as Bayard Rustin, the man who organized the 1963 March on Washington, where Dr. King made his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech that galvanized the battle to desegregate the South. And in the picture, Rustin, Chris plays the pivotal role of Roy Wilkins, the NAACP leader who reluctantly embraced Rustin's efforts and made the march possible. So Chris Rock is bringing King's life to the fore again. And we'll see what's different about this, right? But this one wants to really tackle how the FBI and the government put a lot of pressure on Martin Luther King Jr. Power 96 says he's not a fan of Chris Rock, so I will pass. Will should pimp slap him again. Oh gosh, but he is going to buy Sly Stone's book. Power 96 has some interesting takes. Love his takes. He started this morning by letting us know that he says, "Happy Monday. HBCU homecoming season is upon us. It is time for old people like me to embarrass ourselves with 1990 dance moves." Well, we will continue to watch all of this that we brought you this morning. It'll be interesting to see from Chris Rock and his presentation of Martin Luther King. I am certainly eagerly looking forward to Sly Stone's memoirs, hopefully, and don't see why a movie or some sort of mini-series won't follow that. Unfortunate situation in Orlando with the 30-year-old Yo-Yo young woman. She lost her life somehow. We'll continue to see what unfolds there. And of course, Israel at war, Ukraine at war, America, by extension, at war. We will continue to update you, and specifically how it affects African Americans. Keep watching, and we'll continue to tell you and bring you up to speed. Thanks for tuning in to Let It Be Known. We'll see you tomorrow.